My name's Laura Green, and I wanted to give you a sneak peek behind the scenes at my 8-hour yoga teacher training for nervous system regulation. This is an 8-hour training, and you might think, how much can I actually learn in 8 hours? The answer is a lot. This 8-hour training is split up into two 4-hour workshops. The first workshop is covering the theory and science of the nervous system, followed by a practical embodied yoga workshop utilizing tools to regulate the nervous system. Then the second 4-hour workshop, the first part is on the theory of polyvagal theory, looking at the nerves of the parasympathetic nervous system, looking at the vagus nerve, looking at vagal tone and how we improve stress resilience, followed by a practical exploration of yoga through the lens of polyvagal theory, calming, stimulating, and regulating the nervous system via the vagus nerve and the other nerves of the parasympathetic nervous system. I wanted to give you a little peek at the PowerPoint presentation of the two workshops, because this will show you quite how much you are going to learn. So let me just put on a little screen share for this. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so here is the PowerPoint for this 8-part training. And why this training is so impactful is, first of all, it will really help you as a yoga teacher learn how to regulate your own nervous system. And then it's going to help you teach the science behind nervous system regulation and teach embodied yoga practice, breathwork, and meditation that instantly delivers results for your students in nervous system regulation. And if one thing in my 14 years of teaching has made me realize what brings loyal students, it's sharing educational content that immediately has a felt experience in your students' lives. They can then go home and apply what they have learned in your yoga practice and see positive lifelong changes. This creates yoga students that come back again and again because they know how much they learn from you. They know that they immediately feel better, and they know that they can implement the tools they learn from you in their everyday life. So this course covers the anatomy of the nervous system, the cranial and sacral nerves of the parasympathetic nervous system. They're what we stimulate to regulate, polyvagal theory, stress resilience, and we also look at how this maps into the yoga philosophy of the gunas. We look at how to befriend your nervous system and self-regulation. And it's through a blend of theory and practice. So we start with the simple theory from I know nothing to quite involved on what is the nervous system on a really basic level. Then we look at how the nervous system has two main branches, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So we go right back into this base theory, focusing most on the peripheral nervous system, has two branches, autonomic and somatic. And most of the work that we're going to be doing is actually going to be in the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, think automatic, things your body does automatically, like breathing, regulating your heart rate. But actually, those things can be brought some degree under our automatic control. You can integrate breathing practices that change the breathing ratio, that influence blood pressure, heart rate variability, vagal tone, that really change what's happening in your nervous system. Then we look at how to identify what the autonomic nervous system controls on the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Have a little look at the connection through the endocrine system as well. And then we go into great detail on what are the nerves that stimulate parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is that rest. I really prefer to call it actually our home base. It's not somewhere that we just come to rest, but our home base, the main place we want to operate out of. And everyday life might bring us into moments of stress, but do we know how to get home quickly to the parasympathetic nervous system? And this is where these 5 nerves come in: the oculomotor nerve, the facial nerve, the glossopharyngeal nerve, and the very famous vagus nerve, and also some nerves that supply the pelvic region. We look in detail at the vagus nerve because this is the most significant of the parasympathetic nerves. 80% of the messages go from the vagus nerve to the brain, informing the brain and the nervous system about the state of ease or distress. We can hack this by stimulating the vagus nerve to send messages to the brain to down-regulate. Then we explore how the yoga works with this, how, for instance, the full yogic breath correlates with the 3 zones of the vagus nerve, and also the chant of Om vibrates each of the 3 zones of the vagus nerve. The Ah stimulates the bottom zone of the vagus nerve, the O, the middle, and the top part, which is why we feel so good when we chant Om. We look at, out of interest, the map over the chakras with the zones of the vagus nerve. Then we explore what is vagal tone. There are a lot of words such as vagal tone that are put into this work, but what do they actually mean? What is the relevance of them and how can we work with it? Again, heart rate variability is another of these. What is this? Why is it important? And how does yoga improve heart rate variability? And we'll be putting in little sneaky science tests all the way through this so that in the moment you can test using, a heart rate monitor, blood pressure monitor, blood oxygen saturation levels. What is actually happening? And does the science back up the experience in your body? Then we'll go through a yoga practice integrating all of that. And then that's just part 1. Part 2, we layer on top polyvagal theory. So part 1 is the science of the nervous system. Part 2, polyvagal theory. And notice the difference there. We're talking about science and we're talking about theory. Polyvagal theory is a theory. There is debate about it in the community, but through my work, and I know through connecting with many therapists, the true power in dealing with stress, anxiety, and nervous system regulation through the lens of this theory. So we look at what is polyvagal theory. What are the 3 main pillars of polyvagal theory? How polyvagal theory actually gets us to see that your nervous system is a toggle. You're not either in fight or flight or rest and digest, but it's like a dimmer switch that we get to toggle in between the 3 main states. We look at how polyvagal theory then maps onto what we did the session before on the vagus nerve and the zones of the vagus nerve. So this introduces ventral vagal and dorsal vagal. We look at what are these, how do you recognize them? Getting really clear on being able to identify when you and or your students are in ventral vagal, sympathetic or dorsal vagal. Get really good at understanding the difference between them, what each area of these governs, how to recognize them, and also the freeze response. You'll hear a lot of people talk about the sympathetic as the fight, flight, freeze, but that's actually not quite accurate because we can have a hyper freeze response, which is sympathetic, when we are suddenly frozen, waiting to fight, run, escape danger. And then there's the hypo freeze, which is actually a shutdown mode, when someone has been in a heightened state of awareness, sympathetic nervous system, for way too long. They're coming into adrenal fatigue, burnout, hypofreeze, the collapse stage. We look a little bit at the complex state of blended states. And then the most important bit, identifying ventral vagal, parasympathetic as our home base and how we have a map to quickly return home. I can't teach without adding in the Bhagavad Gita, of course. So we map in the yoga theory of the gunas over polyvagal theory. We look at neuroception. We look at co-regulation, which is another reason yoga class is so amazing. We look at tools for positive co-regulation. And then we look at what is happening with co-regulation in a yoga class. Why is it so impactful when you greet students by name, make eye contact, smile? Yes, that's just polite, but what is happening in their nervous system that's helping your students feel safe at class and downregulate? We look at self-regulation, understanding whether you're trying to use yoga to downregulate or upregulate a nervous system, and look at all the many different tools of the trade. And we even end with a little bit of an exploration on lesson planning before putting that into another experiential yoga class. So as you can see, just through that, in 8 hours of training, you will learn a vast amount, from absolute basics of what is the nervous system through to all the levels of complexity of polyvagal theory, and how, as a yoga teacher, you teach students and yourself how to downregulate, upregulate, maintain a homeostasis of your nervous system. I don't think there's anything more impactful for a human being than to understand the nervous system and how every aspect of our life is shaped through our nervous system. If you want to change your life, learn how to regulate your nervous system. This is the most powerful and impactful information, matched with practical exploration, matched with in the moment scientific experiments that we're going to do to test the validity of the work. So I would love to share this 8-hour training with you. This will be the 3rd time I've taught it. First time was an in-person training, then we took it online, and the feedback from this course is amazing. I teach nervous system regulation most of the time in my yoga classes, and I know how this has affected my yoga students and how it contributes to a thriving yoga business. So come join me. It's in the middle of April. I know it's highly unlikely that everybody can do the time live, so this course can be taken on demand. You'll get the replays of the videos, you'll get the PowerPoint presentation, you'll get the workbook, you have access to me on email to ask your questions. Then when you've done the replay, I simply ask you to email me with your main takeaways, so I know you've done the training, you've understood it, and then I issue you your CPD certificate. But of course, if you can join me live, I would love that as well. I hope to see you for our yoga teacher training for the nervous system. Thank you so much for watching this video, my loves. Bye for now.